All in Sports Network. We love sports.
Usually when I go after the game, 11:30 at night, to that certain restaurant, you already know which one it is, but they're not a sponsor, so I can't give them a shout out. But usually 11:30 at night, game day, after a win, I'm going honey butter chicken biscuit. But this time I maybe had to do a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit because, man, I was smelling it all day, the bacon. 12 wins out of the last 13 meetings in the SEC against Arkansas. Texas A&M, I saw someone tweet out they've played the same game 13 years in a row with Arkansas, even though when they lost. And you know what? Accurate. But the Aggies, as they so often do, find a way to get the win. 21-17 over Arkansas. This is All in Aggies. I'm your host, Ben Peck, here to break it down on this Monday morning. I was going to try to hop on here Saturday, but voice was a little shot. Sunday, I should say. And you could probably still hear the after effects of that. So apologies whenever that rears its ugly head as we make our way through this. But man, oh man, what a game. It wasn't like a classic, but just kind of there were lots of fascinating moments of this game for Texas A&M. See how they pulled away, what they did to pull away. If you saw my post-game recap, I talked about it. The things that kept me positive. And, I talked about how it was nice to see them almost in a way have to struggle through some things because you got to see them figure it out, right? It wasn't that you like to see them run into tough times against an Arkansas team that may not be that great, but it's important for any good team. I mean, look at Ole Miss, look at Georgia. Not to shout out Mark Stoops on this show, but look at Georgia. What was it, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago against Kentucky? Like, good teams, the really good teams, find a way to win when they're not necessarily at their best, but they just find a way. And the lesser teams, not to say bad teams, but the lesser teams, they don't always find a way to win. I think that's a true mark of a champion. And A&M did that. They're at least the champion, at the very least, of the Southwest Classic over Arkansas. Once again, we'll go through the pecking order, the 5 keys to the game I had, the top 5 things I was looking for, see how the Aggies did in that regard. And we'll go shout out maybe some other sports as well if we have time. But first, let's get right to it. Le'Veon Moss, man. This guy down the stretch, 90 plus. I don't have the exact stats available to me, but 90 plus yards rushing in that fourth quarter. As a team, that kind of was reflective. If you looked at at one point, I was getting dinner Sunday night, and they had the game up from SEC Network, and they flashed on the broadcast. And I think this was before the final drive. Well, really, the final drive was just that one first down, but they flashed up the rushing yards by quarter for A&M, and it was like nothing, a little explosion. They only finished with about 134. So, 90 plus of it, I think probably close to 100 came, I think probably more than 100 came in that fourth quarter. So, Tommy Moffitt, there was, I know Notre Dame game, we were like, hey, what's the deal with this? Is the conditioning really there? It looked like Notre Dame was the tougher team later. Well, it looked like A&M was the more physically conditioned team later in the game, the team that got better as the game went on, just from a pure imposing your will standpoint. So got to give a little hat tip to Mr. Moffitt, obviously the players as well, guys out there doing it, the offensive line, and the bell cow in particular carrying the ball, Le'Veon Moss. Now, here's a fun moment that got clipped after the game. Le'Veon Moss, a man of few words. I want to give this answer was actually a response to my question, and I want to preface this, and I'm going to see if I can play this video. On the touchdown drive that set up the Trey Watson, what proved to be the game-winning touchdown with 9 minutes to go, Aggies had a 3rd and 4 they're probably out of field goal range at this point. And I saw Billy Lucci on the sideline. I told him, man, I feel like that play is going to go down as the play of the game because they get stopped there. They're done. It was a 23-yard gain on 3rd and 4 from the 49-yard line, the A&M 49-yard line. It's midfield. You don't get that. You're punting it away. They have a 3-point lead. They only had, I think, 1 yard rushing in the fourth quarter because A&M had the lead. Arkansas needed a touchdown. They were able to dictate what Arkansas had to do. I talked about that with Nick Scorton and about how, it's different from leading by 4, Arkansas leading by 3, A&M defense go out there, get us a stop so we can get the ball back, a chance to go tie or win the game. And, hey, we're up by 4. They're going to go have to score a touchdown, let them loose, and then you get the strip sack fumble. Makes the defense's job way easier because we talked about how good they are running the ball. Taylor Green can make some plays, and especially with his legs, but he can chuck it down the field, no doubt. He can sling it, but it's so neutralized when it's more one-dimensional. Ideally they're handing the ball off to Jaquindon Jackson and trying to run the ball out. So that was just huge from obviously getting the score, getting the momentum, and then putting yourself in a position to where kind of that last offensive stop you need that you're asking from the defense, it's a stop to win the game rather than to extend the game. Le'Veon Moss, though, as we play this play on 3rd and 4, 23-yard gain, this is how I saw it from the field. In my eyes, we saw this, and he got stuffed behind the line of scrimmage here, fights through, and then picks up 23 yards. I'm like, man, what a broken tackle. What a huge play. We're going to take another look at it upon further review. Wasn't as impressive. 98 just kind of does that fake, that TSA security check meme where the guy just barely pats him down and falls down, and then Le'Veon Moss does the rest. We'll do it again here. Get me off the screen. Play it again. So, when I'm asking Le'Veon Moss this question, I'm thinking that hit was significant, and he broke the tackle. I hadn't had a chance to watch it back. Upon further review, maybe not as impactful of contact behind the line of scrimmage as I thought initially. Yeah, just kind of there you go. Thank you very much. But nonetheless, I wanted to get Le'Veon's thoughts on that play because, again, I thought at the time that was the defining play of the game or the play that changed the game. And then he hit us with that legendary quote that is a new mantra for this team. Le'Veon, Peck, NBC College Station. That 3rd down conversion when y'all were down 3 and eventually led to that touchdown seemed like maybe the unsung, moment of the game. Just what do you remember about that play? I think it was 3rd and 4, and they stopped you initially and busted out. Just what do you remember about that?
I don't remember much. I just be balling, really. I ain't gonna lie.
All right. I just be balling, really. Touche. Fair enough. That is, again, maybe it wasn't not the physical feat that I thought it was at the time, but that was still, I still think that was a huge play. And he could have, another little bit here and there been, bumped back even a little bit more. They stop him, 4th down decision. Maybe you don't get it. Could have been a lot worse. So Le'Veon Moss, fantastic day for him. His final numbers as I look for them here, 13 carries for 117, no touchdowns, but 9 yards per carry. And again, the overwhelming majority of that in the fourth quarter. All right, let's go down the list for the pecking order. The 5 things I had listed as my keys to the game. Number 5, Jabri Barber. I said, this is number 5. It's a sneaky little X factor, if you will. We talked about him coming back from injury, wanting to see him more involved in the passing game. And we were of the opinion, I say we, I'm the only one behind this show. I was of the opinion, look, we're not going to see the breakout receiver any given game. And I still think that's largely true. Now, Noah Thomas had a breakout game. He was the guy unquestionably. 6 receptions, 109 yards, the 58-yard touchdown. That goes without saying. I still think over the course of the season, I don't get the sense that Noah or anyone, this is not a shot at Noah, but this is just, I feel like the way this offense is coming together, you may have guys that, like Cyrus Allen did against Florida with the big touchdown. Any given game, they're the guy, or they eat that game for a little bit, but not Ryan Williams against Georgia level. Absolutely just take over and put up these gaudy numbers. I just don't think that's how this passing attack is going to develop. I mean, we're 5 games into the season. We're almost halfway through the season, and we haven't really seen it. So what I've come to the consolation, not even consolation, but just I've recalibrated my expectations that the receiving game is going to be more of a balanced across the board. It's going to be more important instead of Noah Thomas going off like that every single game or any given receiver doing that, just to have a number of options that have proven to you that they can have that breakout game. Noah Thomas has shown that. Cyrus Allen has shown that this year. I would like to see Jabri Barber potentially show that moving forward. Now he's working back from I believe it was a broken foot, but it was a foot injury. He's working his way back from that, suffered in the spring. All the reports, he was doing really, really well. Before that, really disappointing to see him have to go through that setback, but he's starting to get things going. And he finishes 2 receptions, 23 yards. So you're actually your second leading receiver in the game. And he had, upon further review, I think the actual unsung play of the game, turning point. I think it was an 11-yard reception after Arkansas punts the ball back. I want to see what the time chart on this is. Arkansas has that punt. They had a chance 4th and 8 in A&M territory. They don't go for it because they're just past midfield. They punt it, and it's just the perfect punt that like takes a right turn, goes out of bounds, like inside the 1-yard line. The very next play, sprint out to the right, Marcel Reed finds Jabri Barber, 10-yard gain, first down. Gets them out of the shadow of their own goalpost, and there was legitimately a shadow because the way the shadows were coming in for AT&T. I don't know if there was actually shadow, but the sun was coming in from that direction. But A&M gets that breathing room. You know, if you're backed up that much in the goal line, we see it all the time. I don't care how good your offense is or what you got going on, this or that, but like being backed up that much almost negates the offensive drive to begin with from the jump because they just don't have the ability to run their offense in a position where you don't have the luxury to chance it, right? So Jabri Barber, 2 receptions, 23 yards, but he did come up with again, in my opinion, the actual unsung play of the game, because then that led to, it didn't lead to points, but A&M did move the ball. They got the ball down the field. Let's see where they left it off. They got the ball into Arkansas territory, the 44-yard line. I think this was the one where, this was the one where Le'Veon had the 30-yard gain with the face mask down the sideline. So that drive kind of flipped the field once again and set up Arkansas at the 10-yard line as they're trying to go down for the game-winning drive. So that drive gets off the ground courtesy of Jabri Barber. All right, number 4, limit explosive passes. Now listen, we didn't do it early. We didn't do it early, did we, A&M? What was it? 75 yards to Isaac Tesla, runs on electric, touchdown. I mean, that was, I thought in my head, long way to go, but man, that is exactly what Arkansas is capable of and what we can't have, what we can't be seeing. You know, Taylor Green can do that. Like he avoided the tackle, almost got him, slips out, gone. So that was between like the missed sack and the touchdown, that was almost like obviously 7-point swing, but that was almost like a 85-yard difference between a sack and a 75-yard touchdown, like a 83, 82, whatever. But after that, I thought they clamped down pretty well. I think A&M benefited from some pass interference calls that were not called. No, and I'm not even saying that about A&M, but the refs were weird with these uncatchable balls. Like A&M had that one to, I think it was Noah Thomas, where he got taken down. They said it was uncatchable. I believe A&M had a few where they were probably maybe guilty of a flag, or one or two, and they said it was uncatchable, and the Arkansas fans were not happy, and I think probably rightfully so. But listen, they came up big. They got the pick from, I believe it was Des Ricks with the interception. So we got the first one out of the way, and then we settled in. I thought all in all, did a nice job there going through their receivers. Tesla 75 yards. Armstrong had a 27-yard reception. After that, longest, not completion, but longest reception for any other receiver was 16 yards. So I thought that was fine. Jaquindon Jackson, speaking of, he had a 16-yard reception. Three receptions for 36 yards, a 16-yard reception. Jaquindon Jackson, though, on the ground, 10 carries, 37 yards. He had the touchdown on I think it was a read option play that put him up 14-7, I want to say, in the second quarter. But other than that, I'm not going to say non-factor. He factored in the game, but he did not take over the game like I was concerned he could. And again, I think a huge credit to that, as much as you have to give the defense. We talked, though, about the defensive line. Like, you've got to be able to win your run game matchups, your gap responsibilities, without taking away help from the secondary to limit those explosive plays. And they did that. I think this is probably the defensive line's best game of the year when you factor in both the run, limiting the run, getting to the quarterback, and getting to the quarterback and getting sacks. But Jaquindon Jackson, I think A&M basically took him out of the game in the fourth quarter when Arkansas needed to score down by 4. And they only saw the ball 2 times after that touchdown drive with 9 minutes to go for A&M to take the lead. And so they don't have time to be, unless that first drive, and they did, I think, maybe a little bit, but unless you just want to go all out and say this is the decisive drive, you don't have time to mix in 4, 5, 6 runs to Jaquindon Jackson. We got to go. So good job, A&M defense, limiting him most of the way. 3.7 yards per carry. It's fine. But really shout out to the offense for not allowing them to try to be able to establish that run game. Turnovers. I talked about it. We talked about it with my girl. I love you, Courtney Mims, Big Trail Nation. I told her, I think A&M wins this game because I think they force turnovers. Actually, let me see if I can find that. I'm going to try to pull that up.
But something weird always happens. So I'm going to predict something weird happening. I'm going to predict it being close because it always seems to be a back and forth battle. The reason I think the Hogs will win, and this is how I feel. The reason I think the Hogs will win is because they know they need this win.
I would lean slightly A&M only because I think the team that turns the ball over less, protects the ball, will win this game. I think A&M has shown a propensity to protect the ball for the most part. Arkansas give it away a little bit, although we'll see.
Vegas had Arkansas not even winning 4 games this year.
Oh, wow.
Do you think they're going to win 4 games or more than 4 games? So
Leo says, I do think they're going to win 4 games.
He is very upset. I even mentioned that. He's very upset.
Because I think we were both right about the game and how the game was going to go in our own way. But that was my lasting thought. And you had the 3 turnovers. You had the one, and they were all huge. That was the other thing for A&M. It wasn't just time, score, location on the field, or it wasn't just irrelevant in that regard. It was the one can't remember where the interception. Let's see. Interception was on a 1st and 10, so it ended the drive, and it led to it gave A&M the ball 34-yard line just before the half. They did not do anything with it on that last drive. By the way, side note, A&M had a chance. They got sacked. They were at their 43-yard line. They could have called timeout with 23 seconds left-ish. Picked up a few more yards, called another timeout, tried a field goal. Instead, Mike Elko went into the half. I did not like that decision. I think you got to be more aggressive. This game is going to be too tight, but they ended up getting away with it. But anyway, yeah, the interception to stall out a drive, but didn't really do anything for you from a flip the field perspective. But then you had the fumble recovered at the 10-yard line, which set up the Marcel Reed rushing touchdown. And then you had obviously the one at the end of the game to wrap it up. So the turnovers were clutch. They were crucial. They were timely. 3 for Arkansas and none for A&M. All right, so there you go. I don't know what happened with the recording there. The number one situation on the pecking order, the quarterback situation. I wanted clarity at the quarterback situation. I think if you're nitpicky, you could say we didn't really get that because we saw about what we've seen from Marcel this year. It was 11 for 22, 163, 2 touchdowns, but he made some play with his legs. He made some plays with his legs that Connor Wigman is not capable of. It's not a knock on him. It's just they're different types of players. I talked about after the game, he had a 4-yard rush where he avoided a sack, stepped up, and got 4-yard gain. Connor Wigman, maybe if it's not a sack, maybe it's a no gain, a loss of 1. I mean, that would be a sack, but you understand my point. Going from a loss of 6 to a gain of 4, a 2nd and 16 to a 2nd and 6, that changes the dynamic of the drive, and good for him for doing that. Otherwise, I mean, still 50% completion percentage, 163, 2 touchdowns, but he takes care of the ball. And I do think you have clarity in this sense. I think Marcel Reed needs to be the guy moving forward because obviously he's been in there for some wins. But my main thing that I did not my main holdup with Marcel was if Connor is ready to go because remember, we didn't really know how severe this thing was when he had to sit out against Florida. He tried to warm up for the game. It looked like a legitimate game time decision, but then last couple games hasn't dressed out. He hasn't even been able to dress out because they didn't want to give him the shot, injection to relieve the pain on the shoulder. And then I didn't want him to sit out. Like, you force him to sit out. He gets out of a rhythm. He gets in a funk. And then Marcel doesn't get it done, and you put in Connor, and then all this happens. But he just physically hasn't been ready to go the last couple games. Connor hasn't. So Marcel, regardless of how he's been playing, unless it was just absolutely abysmal, which has not been, he was going to be the guy. This was not a situation where Connor's 100% ready to go and we're still going with Marcel. Marcel's been your only option. So he's been in there for 3 games now, 3 starts, 4 games if you count McNeese at the end. And at this point, he is in enough of a rhythm. He is showing glimpses and flashes of performance that would suggest that, obviously the longer you keep him in there, the better he'll get. The offense is getting in a rhythm with him. It's still not clicking 100%, but I think little by little you see, and more than anything, different elements that are coming to light in that regard. You see the down the field passing, as we've been begging for. You're seeing more intermediate routes and plays that are designed to be 15, 20 yards down the field instead of just letting the defense key in on the short stuff and then pin their ears back. I think that's maybe the most notable, since the stats haven't jumped off the page quite yet, but you're starting to see new wrinkles that are coming into play with this offense. And I think that is maybe more important than just the baseline, passing numbers, rushing yards for Marcel. Marcel, by the way, I don't know if I read his rushing, 10 carries for 13 yards, but he had 7 carries for 39 yards if you take out the sacks. So, obviously I can't do math. Was that 5 yards a carry? Had the 13-yard touchdown. I don't think 13-yarder was a touchdown. But anyway, I think Marcel Reed's got to be your guy moving forward. Even Josh Pate came out last night and said he would be, all things being equal, Connor Wigman, I think, maybe gives this team a better chance to win. That's paraphrasing what Josh Pate had to say. But yeah, at this point, I don't think you can go back. I think I didn't want to sit out Marcel or Connor needlessly and get them in a funk. But you haven't done that on your own. Connor's just hasn't been available to play. So it's not self-inflicted rust, as I called it. Anyway, I don't want to harp on it too much. I already have, too late. But we've talked about it ad nauseum on the show. But I think in that sense, Marcel Reed is your answer moving forward. He's going to be the guy. Unless they come out against Mizzou, you have the bye week after. If he struggles and Connor is ready, then maybe coming out of the bye week, we see something different. But I think assuming it's an adequate performance, Marcel will be your guy until there absolutely has to be a change moving forward. All right. Going to cut it up right there. Ended a little short. Sorry, I had to splice that together in the middle. I was recording, and then on my thing, it said that I had no connection on my camera. So I was like, I don't know. Is anyone hearing this? I felt like I was talking into the void. So I kind of cut it up there. But thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend, help us grow this channel. Hey, by the way, as of like last night, we had the lead for a while. Then we fell behind, and now we're catching up. We are like 11 subscribers behind the All In Horns YouTube channel. We got to beat them. Come on. You know how it is. Saw them off. Subscribe. Help us beat that channel in fun, friendly competition, and help us make this the best show we can possible. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.